Hi everyone, it's Roger and James here from the What's on Disney Plus podcast. In this week's episode, we're going to be talking about a number of different things Disney Plus related. A lot of this stuff kind of came out of the D23 Expo, kind of calling it the D23 Expo fallout, because there was just tons of little bits and pieces. We'll also be talking about Rise of the Skywalker trailer and a few other bits and pieces that's been going on this past week. So James, first off, question, have you been watching anything this past week?
Let's see. In terms of Disney, I watched 101 Dalmatians, the animated classic. Holds up really well. It's obviously not the first time I've seen it, but it's been a while since I've seen it, and yeah, it's a solid movie. It's only an hour long, which still feels weird these days, but good movie. It went in, told its story, and got out. And then the other one I saw this week was Solo, the Star Wars still. Obviously, I've seen that before. We talked about it on Diz Kingdom. I think I enjoyed it more this time around, mostly because I remembered the parts that I found boring, like the whole chase through the Kessel Run Maw and all that stuff. And I was like, okay, I'll play with my phone during those bits and stick to the other parts. Yeah, it was a fun movie. I still don't think it should have existed, but it was about as good a Solo movie as we were going to get, given that it does exist. But whatever. Yeah,
I'll be honest, it's been a bit of an odd week. I haven't really watched hardly anything, primarily just because there was just so much news coming out of D23, of like doing articles, but also backing up some videos for the upcoming week ahead, and it's just been just a real frantic week. I remember I got to like Thursday, and my wife looked at me and she goes, "You look really tired." It's like I said, "I've had a really busy week," and she goes, "Oh yeah, at work." It's like, yeah, but not only has it work, but it's just been a really busy week in the evenings for me, because I've just been so busy, pretty much doing probably 5 hours plus a night doing stuff for the website and channel and stuff. So it's just been a really busy week, and I sat there and went, I don't think I've watched a few things. I've been watching trailers and clips and stuff, and watching back loads of people's videos from like the D23 just to see if I could find any kind of juicy stuff, and just make sure I kind of had an idea of everything that came out of it, and watching the panels and stuff. So it's really just been like a D23 just run from last week, really. Just like,
yeah, and it's weird. I was actually thinking about it earlier, earlier today, or yesterday as it were now. I'm kind of at the point now with Disney Plus where I'm just ready for it to start so that we can talk about the shows, having seen the shows. And obviously we haven't seen the shows. All we've got now are trailers and speculation and guesses. And, it's only a couple of months off. Registration is now working on for D23 members at least. That was the whole thing. You mentioned it. And it's like, no, I'm ready for the shows now. Not even just like The Mandalorian. I'm just ready to be like, yes, these shows came out this week. I watched this show or this episode of this show, and to actually talk about the meat and potatoes.
This is the cool thing, really. I think of going forward, of just like that thing. We're only about 10 weeks away. It's coming in fast. I think the next few weeks they are going to be hot on trying to get this thing. I mean, they've had a really great week. I mean, considering they've not said anything since last week. Since the D23 Expo, they have just managed to keep that momentum building in terms of just people talking about it. And obviously the one big thing this past week is the D23 members offer that they've run. So it was 33% off, worked out about $140 for a 3-year deal plus tax. And obviously depending on where you are, because people were getting thrown off, I think like Florida has some kind of communications tax and a few bits and pieces. So it's around about $140 plus tax for a 3-year deal. There was that many people trying to sign up to it. It actually brought down the D23 website. That was down for at least overnight. It was down for most of the day. And since then, things. But when it kind of came on, a lot of people weren't getting the message. And it was taking up to 36 hours for new accounts to kind of go through. And they just got whacked. They got whacked with people taking up this offer. I mean, I'd love to know how many people have actually signed up this week, because the deal ends on September the 2nd. So if you're listening to this weekend, get on it quick if you do want that deal. But also, if you're not a member, you kind of had to get in like yesterday to kind of make sure you're in. Now, you did it yourself, didn't you? You signed up for the 3-year deal?
I did, and although I previously had a gold membership for D23, I got it for the Expo 2 years ago, not the most recent one. I still had to sign up again for the regular membership because I let it lapse.
Yeah.
Which was odd. So, yeah, I heard about the delays. I heard about, you sign up and it would still it took, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 hours from signing up on D23 to get the offer. So, yes, you've got to factor that in if you want to do this deal and you haven't done it yet. But it does seem like after that initial rush, that delay period has gone down drastically. So that's good news. But still, if you want to do this, don't delay.
No.
And we don't get any benefit for you subscribing. There's no referral links or something like that. So totally make the decision on your own. It does save you money, but you are hooked into a 3-year deal, which you pay entirely up front.
I mean, it works out under about $4 a month if you do it that way. Another way that I've seen people sort of buy 2 years, get 1 year free. That was the other way of people looking at it, which I didn't think, or buy, and I think that's definitely good. They've definitely got people interested. I think the price is low enough that people have hooked in. I did try and sign up, but it didn't like my PayPal or credit card because I was a bit like, I'm gonna try it. I know it's not gonna work, but I'm gonna try it anyway, just in case it worked. But it was like, we know it was for US residents, and that was the thing for me. I was like, had it been available, I would have gone for it. But it was the kind of thing as well of a 3-year deal, and there was some information that came out through Disney Plus that kind of changed my mind on actually firing up all cylinders on this. Was because Disney Plus have actually officially opened up their FAQ, and they have an official Disney Plus helps thing. And in the FAQ, there was a section about the fact of logging in other countries. And if you log in another country, you'll get what content is in that country. And if Disney Plus isn't available in that country, it's not going to work. But anything you download will do. And I was looking at it as reading between the lines of just going, I don't need a US and an English account because they are going to have. It was just a kind of situation of, I don't need a 3-year US account for me personally. I can just use my main account when it launches. Obviously, I'll get a short-term deal when we launches in the US. But I was along the lines of, I don't need a 3-year long-term deal. It was great, and I'm hoping the UK does the same thing because I'd be on that like that. But it was that situation of, I love the idea that they're being very open about the idea of traveling with this app, being in different countries, and along the lines of it looking like, as long as you've got an active subscription, they're not really that worried.
No, and of course, I was thinking about it because last week I was like, no, this is going to be for gold members only, right? And I realized not only do they get you to subscribe by doing this, but now you're also subscribed to D23, the fan magazine. Yeah. Even if you immediately unsubscribe to it, which I'm sure many people will do, they still get to brag about those numbers in the next investor call and all that stuff. Also, another thing to keep in mind is that this deal is specifically for Disney Plus. If you're holding out for a package with Hulu or ESPN, this doesn't include that, and you will then have to buy a different package to get those 2 channels or whichever one you want. Personally, for me, that's not a big deal. I don't think Hulu is something I'm going to be like subscribed to 100% of the time. That'll be one of those channels that I'm like, I'll get this every, a couple times a year, binge the stuff I really want to see, and then let it lapse and come back later. But everyone's got their own thing. So if you want to do the bundle, then hold out. They're still coming.
Yeah, I think the thing is with that bundle is it's like, as a non-sports watcher, the ESPN stuff wouldn't actually want me in there. Right. I'm paying. I'd much rather pay for the Hulu non-ad version and the Disney Plus and have the better experience. But I can see why they've done it. I still think a Disney Plus Hulu basic package will probably be the most popular one they could run because sports are that kind of weird thing. But I can see what they're doing. But I am sure there'll be some more offers. It depends.
There will be many offers.
Yeah, I see. I would not be at all surprised, and I might be a bit of a cynic, but I would not be at all surprised if they extended this offer another week, last minute, to due to popular demands or something on that. It wouldn't surprise me at all if they ended up doing that. They might not. They might be like, okay, that's fine. Took a bit of a hit, I think, with the idea that the website went down. That was people going, oh, and I'm going, yeah, but the D23 website was probably run by an entirely different team to the Disney Plus, probably on different servers, because all it was a link to their official site. So the problem wasn't maybe at the Disney Plus end, it was at the D23 end, and maybe they completely misread how many people they thought were going to sign up. But it's not a good thing. But then there's also the other side of things. Nothing makes things look more better and more appealing than when you can't get it. It's salesman 101. Sell out as fast as you can at the beginning to make it look like you've got a hot commodity.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, I think it looks better when you don't have problems, but that's the spin. It's so popular that it crashed the servers. It wouldn't surprise me actually if this was also a certain gauging of the interest so they can determine how many servers they need on launch week. But I think no matter what they predict, it's almost certainly going to have launch week issues. I mean, everything, almost every major service has launch week issues. I'm guessing, I didn't jump into it, but I'm guessing even World of Warcraft Classic, whatever the re-release of the original version of Warcraft that came out this past week, even that was massive queues and giant wait times, at least from what I was reading. So yeah, and Warcraft's been running for what, 15 years now, and they still couldn't get a launch going properly. So
this was actually one of the conversations that was going on in the Facebook group, our Disney Plus Facebook group this week, of expecting problems at launch. And ironically, someone from Disney Plus or Disney streaming service had been bragging about the fact that they're ready for launch and they've upped their game and they're more than ready for all the people, because they've run lots of they run the WWE, they run ESPN with the UFC fights, and they're used to this large. I think they even used to build the HBO app, so when everyone used to come in to watch Game of Thrones, this was a company they built from, they are used to dealing with this before. And then obviously it all broke down, and I'm going, oh man, because that must be so bad, because it's probably not their fault, but it reflects on them. And people are going, will there be problems and stuff? And I'm going to be honest with you, there will be problems. If there isn't problems, I will be surprised. When day one, when it opens up, I think the best thing for them to do is, obviously, if they open it up in the middle of the night, that will help kind of ease people into it. But yeah, if it doesn't have a problem with the amount of people, I would be surprised if it isn't. It's just the nature of the beast. Of the servers are going to be whacked, but at the end of the day, if they are expecting 90 million subscribers, then in my eyes, it's well, you need to make sure that you've got enough for that before you even open the door. If you are saying to people openly, we are going to have 90 million subscribers globally, then maybe you should be able to handle that. But they can never test everything until the program is up. And it's a real odd one. That's why they're doing all the beta testing now, but they can never fully test it, because no online service can do this, of testing what it's like when millions of people are all trying to download. I always look at it as when you sit on a plane, and they turn on the in-screen, the entertainment system, and everyone goes and hits the button, and the entire system just give it. Within 5 minutes, everything settles down and everyone's watching. But there is that thing of that initial thing when everyone turns it all on at the same time, the entire plane the feeling of the entertainment just drops off.
Yeah, and there are tons of examples of that we could pull up throughout history and recent history as well. So, I'm sure we'll be talking about at launch week all the issues that come up, but hopefully they'll be done quickly. Hopefully Disney will have, an all hands on deck, not just the creators of the app and the web interface and stuff like that. They'll obviously be there, but backup personnel as well with the specialties and getting these things going. But
yes,
that's not a problem for us yet.
No.
We'll see what happens.
Right. Okay. So let's move on now. Another little bit of that came out after the D23 Expo was the fact that New episodes for Disney Plus are set to drop weekly. That's been kind of a big thing that's been going around. They mentioned it in a couple of different the press details. John Favreau, he was talking about it, and it's it's been again another talking point on the Facebook group this week was about the benefits of this, and I definitely feel this is a good thing for Disney Plus. I think it helps stretch things out. I think it keeps the conversation going. But we've been talking about this for a while. I think with the weekly thing, but you're now seeing it being mentioned a lot more.
Yeah, and there's not much to say about it. I suppose I'm kind of reaching for something. The only thing that really comes to mind is that some people will certainly be upset by that. They're used to the Daredevil dropping and watching the entire thing in a single day or 2 days or over a long weekend, whatever. But I think for a lot of people, the weekly schedule is just better because you can still binge it if you want once everything's out, or you still get that anticipation and the cliffhanger endings. You don't really get the cliffhangers with binge watching the way you do week to week, but it's up to everybody how they want to watch. That's really
I think it's funny because I saw a couple of posts about this with people like doing it, and I think it really depends on the age group of who you are asking. You ask a load of adults in their late 20s, early 30s, early 40s and stuff. We've all got lives. We've all got stuff going on. Our view is much more of spread it out a little bit. If you're a student or a kid, I want all of it now. I don't want to wait. And there is a difference. I saw something on like IGN, and it was much more skewed one way, where compared to like the results of our polls was very much the opposite way. And I think there is very much that kind of generation thing of, the older you get and the more other stuff you've got to do, the less you like the binge watching is convenient, but keeping up becomes impossible if you have basically a life. and that's kind of the problem for adults is we've got other things going on. We've got work, we've got family, we've got other things that we're doing, whereas we cannot just sit down and consume 8 hours of content in one evening or in 2 evenings at a drop of a hat.
Most of the time, anyway. Most of the time. There are times, but in general. And I would say, like, in terms of being an adult, I have a fairly open schedule on my end. I don't have a significant other at the moment. I don't have kids to take care of. It's just me at the moment. And even there, I'm just like, no, I'm not going to spend 13 hours watching Daredevil in a single run or Defenders in an 8-hour run. Like, I'm going to break it up. I'd rather do other things in there. And even then, I still got, household chores that still need doing. So, but I can definitely see students, especially between semesters or, when classes are out, just sitting down and watching through stuff, get some friends together, order pizza, whatever. And like I said, the option is still there, just not on the first day.
No. And I think as well, there was a little bit of kind of wanting to watch the entire Mandalorian on the free trial at the beginning. I think there was a little bit of that as well. People go, I'm going to get Disney Plus. I'm going to get the free trial, watch the whole lot, and then I'll cancel it. Like, no, you're going to have to wait. I don't want to do that. It's like, but that wasn't really the point of they didn't want to drop everything on day one. You're still going to be able to watch the movie and stuff, but they didn't want you. You'll have to wait 2 months until you can do that, and it's unfortunate. It's just one of those things. Personally, again, I think weekly. It's going to be interesting to see with these like shorter episodes of these like little shorts and things of how that works. I think it's definitely going to be more fun for us. And as I said, for the podcast, it's great because that means then we've got the constant drip feed of like, it's like, I can just imagine us going, did you watch the entire bit of the Mandalorian? Yeah, well, we can't talk about spoilers and stuff, and therefore that's the end of it. It's going to be a lot more easier for us to kind of go on. So definitely a thumbs up from us for that.
That's definitely true. And something that's kind of unique to podcasters. I mean, in general, because even on the Diz Kingdom when we were doing it, Daredevil would drop or Luke Cage and be like, I'm on episode 6. Well, I'm on episode 3. Well, cool. And it's it's like, well, we don't really have much to talk about except, the first 2 episodes were great or not good or, whatever. So this way, and also a little selfishly, this gives us a chance to be like, week 1, Mandalorian episode 1, week 2, Mandalorian episode 2, etc. So it does help us with a constant drip of content.
Yes, that's definitely a good thing. A couple of other things that came out through the week was there was a video put up of some new B-roll footage of the app in work, and next week there'll be a video going out where I do like a full-on deep dive into it. But two shows came up that were on there. They had fun there. We've heard nothing about them. One called Disney Family Sundays, and another one called Pixar in Real Life. All we've seen so far are these two screenshots. Down in the corner of one of them as a Disney Plus original. Disney Family Sundays. We have an image of what looks to be like a mum and daughter, and we know nothing else. All I did was, when I tried to find any more information, I found some producers and some editors and some bits and pieces that have worked on it since last year. That is it. We know zilch about this one. The other one was Pixar in Real Life, which we know a little bit more about this because in the summer they were filming stuff in New York where they were doing almost like prank stunt things where, for example, like in New York, they would have somebody dressed up as Russell, like as a kid, running through the streets. And then they would have, there was apparently a by and large pop-up shop that arrived for 24 hours where people was like buying stuff there. They had, in an area, they suddenly had a load of people come running in dressed up as the Child Detection Agency. And it's just kind of like, I would almost like filming people's reaction to what's going on in real life. So I can't imagine these being like full half-an-hour episodes, but little shorts. They're a fun little thing.
Yeah, I've got nothing on that.
It's filler.
I'm glad they're having fun. They're having fun with it. They're doing different formats. That's kind of the idea. It would be boring if everything was the same. This is not a show I'm particularly interested in, but it could be a good little time killer. It could be just like, we've got 10, 15 minutes before we got to be somewhere. What can we do? Oh, we can watch that. So
yeah, I think they're definitely going to be going into this idea of making different length shows. I think they're embracing this short side of things, that there are some shorts aren't necessarily a bad thing. And I actually don't think, as a YouTube consumer, when I watch all my favorite YouTubers and things like that I watch, the 7 to 8 minute bite, and then next week, you have another one. And that's kind of how a lot of people do consume stuff. And it's that thing of, is a half an hour show about this? Or would it be better as each one is available individually? And there's a kind of for's and against it. The traditional thing of we've got to fill in 22 minutes with adverts in the middle. They don't have to do that with streaming things. And yeah, Netflix doesn't offer that, but Disney have got, I'd much rather a 8-minute show that works perfectly than them stretch out to a 22-minute, 30-minute show that drags. And that's the kind of, I think in general, how I'd rather have it work right for the content it needs to be.
Yeah, and I think even like you said, even Netflix hasn't really embraced this idea yet. They still stick to either like the 40-minute or the hour-long show. There is some variability there too, especially with the more high-profile stuff. There will be some episodes that are shorter, some episodes that are longer, but still kind of sticks to that. And I would like to see not just Disney, but all the companies being like, we're not making this for syndication. We're not making this for the traditional hour-long block, which is actually 40 minutes, or the 30-minute block, which is actually 22 minutes. Do what you can. Tell the writers, I don't want you to fill this with fluff. I want you to tell your story. And if that means telling the story in 30 minutes, tell it in 30 minutes. If it means an hour. If it means 47 minutes, then do it for 47 minutes,
Yeah, and I also think as well as like audience have changed, and because on Disney Life here in the UK, you actually we have a whole section just for shorts. It's like TV, movies, shorts. It's full of stuff, and there's lots of big things in there. And I definitely think we'll see a lot more of that going forward. But moving on from there, some other little snippets from, and this was the one that I kind of put a story up because it was like, well, it's kind of been confirmed, but Disney won't include R-rated movies. And I was like, you kind of knew that. We've heard them say this a lot, but apparently an entertainment reporter was talking to them and they said, no, there's nothing on there. They've been very open to me since November last year about the fact that Disney Plus is not R-rated. They are willing to go PG-13, TV-14, and, they even dropped some swear word into the High School Musical trailer. They're not afraid of going that little bit more edgy. We got the Mandalorian with helmets on sticks after being spiked and people being beaten up. They aren't
those helmets.
Yeah, but it's that thing of they aren't afraid of going, but obviously R-rated stuff. And I was like, well, that's kind of the point of Hulu. That was the whole thing. FX shows not being on Disney Plus and family. It's like, but I think a lot of people all wanted that, like yes, it's not coming. And then people going, I want it. It's like, it's not really what it's for. It's not just a Disney Channel. And it's that kind of line of everything got a bit mixed. People then going, oh, well, I don't want to just subscribe to the Disney Channel. It's like, there was a big line between TVG and an R-rated. There's somewhere in between.
I mean, just look at Avengers Endgame. They cursed a lot in that movie, and that'll end up on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of wiggle room there. And in this case, when we're saying like it won't be R, we're talking more like The Rock. The movie The Rock from the 1990s, isn't going to show up there. Not that Rock. Con Air, Armageddon. No, those ones were fine. More violent, bloody kind of things. Even you were talking about the Mandalorian trailer. It's not even the helmets on the spikes. It's that guy who looks like he's going to get cut in half by the door closing on him. I don't know how much of that they're going to show. It looks like it's probably going to get a cutaway, but still, you're like, that's a pretty violent way to go right there. Obviously, we don't have the context for that scene yet, but yeah, there's still a lot of room. And then also, just in general, it's Disney. What the heck do you expect? Their entire brand is, family friendly. Yeah. Even if they're gonna to drop the S word and the occasional F word in there, it's still by and large, pun intended, family friendly.
Yeah, so. I think that's the key thing. If you've got that brand logo over it, and I think Disney are at this weird stage right now where they've got all these brands. They've got 20th Century Fox, they've got FX, they've got these new brands and Touchstone Pictures, and they used to own Miramax for a bit. They've got all this stuff that they don't put their Disney logo on. There's a reason why at the beginning of the Marvel Avengers things, they don't have the castle come up. There is not everything does do that. And I think they've just got to... We're in this weird zone now where, there's probably just as many adults watching the Disney stuff that are going, no, well, we want some check it on there as well. People are also along the lines of they want, essentially, I would imagine everyone would be quite happy if they took everything from Hulu and chucked it onto Disney Plus and kept it the same price. Everyone would be like, yeah, it's fine, keep it. But Disney have got a strategy going forward of separating it at the silo of, where it's going to fit. And they've got FX, ABC, Freeform, and 20th Century Fox over here, and then you've got Disney and everything else over here. And that's kind of, I think, where they are looking at it, rather than offering one big platform like Netflix, offering you the choice.
Yeah, and choice is good. That's the one thing. I realize choice in this case costs money, but choice is still good. And yeah, I'm not sure why people are still kind of surprised by this one at all. No. So I don't know.
No. Right. So moving on, a bit of a rumor that kind of, I don't know if it's necessarily going to come to anything, was apparently Miss America Chavez is rumored to be a new Marvel show for Disney Plus. This kind of feeds into the idea of maybe they're building to an A-Force or a Young Avengers or a New Avengers story. Kind of odd this one dropped just after Disney. It's like, well, they just announced all this stuff. It wouldn't surprise me if they did this character. She fits a couple of bills of doing something a bit different. But the Disney Plus lineup, for what they've told us so far, yeah, if it did do this could be years away.
Yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. This definitely goes on the pick a character, throw a dart, and make a rumor about the character. Now, I could see America Chavez being one that is seriously thrown around, because she does tick a lot of boxes when it comes to representation, not just Latina woman, LGBTQ, a whole lot of stuff. Plus, she's got a cool power set, which is very fun visually. And she does play a part in the Young Avengers. She does play a part in A-Force. She's got a lot of that. On the flip side, she has not had a particularly good solo comic, so she's not really known as a solo character.
Yeah.
But we'll see. It's rumor about character X. Which character have we not picked from the back catalog yet? Okay, let's do that one.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
You could make an argument for it.
Yeah, I definitely think. But also, she could be a character introduced in one of the other series. They could bring her in some of. I think after Miss Marvel, Moon Knight, and She-Hulk being revealed, is a little bit like, okay, they are going into the C-list superheroes at this point because they feel they can do. But yeah, this could be years off. I mean, I wouldn't expect. I think what they've announced so far will keep us busy for a while to come. So that was a bit of a rumor. Okay, moving on to the next topic. We've got a thing about like a new survey has shown that interest in Disney Plus is a lot higher than we were expecting, or anyone was expecting. The UBS Evidence Lab did a survey just before the D23 Expo of 1,000 US consumers, and they found that 43% of them were planning on subscribing, with about 57% of them saying they're going to be canceling at least one of their other subscription services. About 37% of the people asked were looking to cut their traditional television. Now, Disney have previously stated that they're looking between 20 and 30% of the US broadband-enabled population to be subscribed to Disney Plus within 5 years. So obviously, if they're hitting 40-odd% of surveys, that's higher than their projections. So it's all very good news from the things are very different when you actually get out there in person, obviously. It's just I think it would probably be even higher after the D23 if they did that, because I think they did a very good job of, even people I know have been coming to me, talking to me about the trailers. The thing is, it took them a couple of days. Suddenly someone comes into work going, "Oh, I saw that Lady in the Tramp trailer." And it's filtering through now, through time. And these surveys are a bit hit and miss. If you're doing the survey, if you did a survey and you asked my dad would never do a survey. My dad would be asked to do a survey, but he's not being included in this survey field. So the surveys are always a little bit hit and miss. I mean, if they stopped 100 people in my town, you're going to get a different result than if you did asked 100 people in the nearest city. You're going to get a different. It depends on the people you ask, but generally good news for Disney with that statistics.
Yeah, like you, I always take these with a large pile of salt, because when it gets down to it, it's very easy to say you're going to do something. It's much harder to do it later on, especially when money is involved. So we'll see. I assume you can put a little bit of weight behind these because, as we were talking about earlier, they did crash the D23 server with people trying to sign up for the offer and all that. So there is some weight behind this. But again, surveys are only as useful as the paper they're printed on. We'll see how the launch numbers actually look like, assuming, of course, Disney deigns to tell us what the the actual numbers look like.
They will do if they're good.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
But even if they're good, they might not give hard numbers. They just might be, self-congratulatory. It was so good that the servers were down and we had to turn on all these new servers and so many things happened. And of course, the real question, which we will almost certainly not get the answer for, is how many people turn off a Netflix subscription, how many people turn off a Hulu subscription, how many people cut the cord on cable, so on and so forth, because those companies are not going to want to advertise what those numbers are, unless, of course, they don't feel anything at all. If Netflix comes out and says, yeah, we didn't see any subscribers, I mean, that's actually good news for them. So
yeah, I mean, in Netflix's last quarterly results, they lost 100,000+ subscribers, so they are seeing that. The general consensus seems to be from, maybe it's their spin on it, is the idea that actually the concept of adding HBO Max and Disney Plus and Apple TV and Comcast new one is that in some ways what will happen is more people will leave traditional television and bring up the amount of subscribers overall. So if you are a TV cable subscriber and you unsubscribe from that, you are likely to pick up Netflix, Amazon, and maybe Disney Plus. We're actually going to pick your own little bundle, and so that will bring up the numbers. Yeah, people might be going, I'm not paying for all these subscription services, I'm going to drop in and out, but that's going to be a different thing altogether. But the idea really is that they're looking at this could be with all these new companies and streaming becoming standard, it will bring up the amount of people doing it. So it's always that kind of interesting thing. A few kind of international bits and pieces as well. But regarding the UK, there was the official tweet from the UK Star Wars site saying that The Mandalorian is coming in early 2020. Same things have been going out on like the Brazilian Disney Plus Twitter feed. I mean, literally every story at the minute. That's the question underneath. That's got nothing to do with it. But there's a lot of discussion about this, and this is where like the international side of things comes into a little bit more focus. Was apparently according to IGN in France, and I didn't know about this rule, and people have been confirming it in our Facebook group, was in France, they can't actually put any new movie from the last 3 years onto any streaming service. There's some French law in place where anything that goes to the cinema can't go onto a streaming service for 3 years. So Disney Plus wouldn't be able to have, for example, Endgame in December. You'd have to wait years. But it's not Netflix have this problem, Amazon have this problem, and people are trying to convince the government to change it, but they're being very protective of the traditional way they do it, and they don't want things changing. So this is going to be where that whole thing I mentioned earlier about content being different in each country. Disney are going to try their best to get the same show and the same movie on every platform, but there are going to be regional differences. Apparently like in France, Simpsons and Star Wars have got deals with other people, and things are going to be different, and you are going to experience this. Things like, for example, The Mandalorian wouldn't be affected by this or the Noel, for example, because it's an original and they can get around it like this. And it's also probably why in Disney are making they said earlier this year that they're making lots of original content for France, because they're losing a big chunk of it. Obviously they could get, but also the French public are more used to this rule because they've never had it. So it's a really weird one, but I thought it was interesting that came up about France, and every little place is all going around what we're going to get, and there are going to be some regional differences, and it's probably going to take 3 to 5 years to sort all of this out.
Yeah, this is actually the first I've heard of that. France, obviously someone in government was, we've got to protect traditional media, because they must have, whether or not they saw numbers or they're just assuming people are less likely to go to the movie theater and spend money on the movie theater if 8 months later or however many months you can just watch it at home. This is something, of course, you and I have talked about many times, where we're like, yeah, it's a movie, I want to see it, but I don't want to go to the theater to see it, and I don't want to spend the money, spend the time, etc. And all right, France, if that's not how you want to do it, then okay.
They've apparently, somebody was saying that it's like, very protective of like the French TV channels, and they're very much trying to protect. And Europe have this policy where to have a streaming platform, you have to have a certain percentage of that content created within Europe. And so this is kind of the running kind of thing going on, with different regions have different systems, and unfortunately it's going to be the case. Again, it's probably one of the reasons why the UK is not getting it at launch, is not necessarily due to these rules, but other things going on. A lot of contracts, a lot of people looking to Sky being the big issue, because they have the Disney channel and the Disney cinema channel that I think they expire in 2020, but they can't do it. And it's things like that, and it is going to be a tricky situation. But ultimately, Disney did update their FAQ this week and talking about all this stuff of logging in from different countries. Being able to them in situations, they've got to be everything's point of view. You got to look at it a bit different. If we want to put it on all of our platforms, there's different individual countries, and Sky might not want them doing it, but Disney are going to be less inclined to go, you can watch. If you watch it on our ones and get around the rules, we still own it. Netflix is in that situation of they've brought a movie, it's not their product, and therefore there's always that iffy bit between who owns it. It's like, for example, the Terminator come out this past weekend in the UK. In the US, it's a Paramount movie, where over here, it's a 20th Century Fox movie. That's where things start getting a bit difficult, of where, Paramount wouldn't necessarily want there is that mix up between the two, but sometimes that's the issue going forward.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add on to that. You covered it pretty well there. Yeah. The one question I had is with the Terminator came out. There's a new Terminator movie.
Yeah, I think I don't know if it's out or if the trailer came out. I think
okay.
But yeah, there's a new Terminator movie with the little girl Claire from the Crown or something. I think she's playing Sarah Connor or something like that. I don't know. I haven't seen the trailer, but it's one of those things of Fox was showing off this trailer and people going, "What? Terminator's not Fox?" Yeah, but there's all these previous deals and all the rest of it. A couple of other quick last bits. Apparently, Star Wars Obi-Wan Kenobi series is set 8 years after the events of Revenge of the Sith, which is about 10 to 12 years before the events of A New Hope, but also a few years before the events of Star Wars Rebels. It's all, I mean, it was just a bit of a confirmation through the Star Wars show. It was a bit like, 8 years after it, well, then something then we're going to be, Luke Skywalker is going to be 8 years old. It's tricky, isn't it, with this one? Of like, well, they were going to have to sell it somewhere. It was just like a random thing of saying that in the official Star Wars video.
I mean, honestly, I'd be surprised if Luke really shows up at all, no matter what his age is. I would be very surprised if most of this takes place on Tatooine or anything like that. I'd think that would be a pretty boring movie. So the fact that it's 8 years, it at least gives us the time scale, kind of a rough idea of what's going on. We know we're not going to get like the Darth Maul fight from Rebels or something like that. I don't think this lines up with any of the comics that have had Obi-Wan in the post Revenge of the Sith era. We're not getting a story that we already got somewhere else, and that's really all I can take from it.
Yeah, there's got to be a scene in there where Obi-Wan is on a mountain or something, looking down on Luke's house.
Oh, that'll probably be the opening shot, honestly.
And the little Luke runs across the, and he then smiles and then he walks away. Kind of, they've got to do that. They've got to have that little nod to it there. And then they go, yeah, he's checking on them and making sure everything's fine and he's nearby should there be any issues. But the fact that, because even Luke mentions about them being this hermit he knows of him in the original New Hope, doesn't he? So but there's going to be some mix over, unless it's like you say, Obi's standing back to never get too close, that kind of weird thing.
I think that would be the opening shot, honestly. Maybe even the ending shot as well. It'll be the first and last shot of Obi-Wan looking over Luke. But yeah, from A New Hope, we know that Luke doesn't really know Obi-Wan, so he's not like, oh yeah, the guy that Uncle Owen and Beru have over for dinner once every 3 months or so. Yeah. No, he's that crazy old hermit guy out in the desert that nobody really knows anything about.
Yeah, so who knows? So that was a little bit of a one. Just looking here now, we've got I think that was the majority of them. There was again more details on that Hero Project were revealed. That's going to be another weekly series that'll be dropping out throughout the year. There's going to be something like 20 episodes of this. I'll be honest, that's going to be debuting on November the 12th with a second episode on Friday. This is where they're starting to get into the nitty-gritty of like even starting to give us dates of when second episodes. And they said that it'll be dropping released weekly on Fridays, starting with episode 2 on Friday, November the 15th. This 20-episode series shares the remarkable positive change several young heroes are making in their own communities across the country. These inspiring kids have dedicated their lives to selfless acts of bravery and kindness, and now Marvel celebrates them by welcoming them into the Marvel Hero Project. Basically, they turn them into a comic book. It's like, yeah, okay. It's like, it's not for me. This is like the word. What they're saying is like, yeah, this is not a show I'm really looking forward to. If this thing didn't exist, I can see why they're doing it. It's a kind of a family show, and I think they're just trying to branch out the Marvel away from the impact that it has on people and other things, and trying to bring that in rather than trying to give us, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. They need to kind of stretch out a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, at its core, it's basically a propaganda show. Like, look how this has touched people and all that stuff. But sometimes it's good to highlight that, to remind people, they're not just silly characters on a screen beating up Thanos and CGI monsters and stuff like that. will I watch it? I'll probably watch an episode or two,
Yeah.
but it's not, as near as I can tell, it's not really meant to be a show that you look forward to every single Friday, where you're just like, oh, I can't wait to see what they highlight this week. But it's more of a what's on, what can we put on in the background, what can we watch that won't really that's not a difficult watch, maybe don't have to pay close attention to. That's a good show to throw in there.
It depends on the length of the show, like we said earlier. If it's a 22-minute show or a 15, if it's a 45-minute show, maybe a bit deep. But I wouldn't be surprised if these were like 22-minute shows of go see a family, tell their story, tell them what they're doing, then give them a big moment where everyone comes together and Marvel celebrates it, and that's kind of a nice feel-good story. So we'll probably see a little bit more in it. But yeah, it's nice to see them doing stuff. There were some other bits and pieces from the FAQ where they did confirm, for example, that Disney Plus is going to be available different languages. It'll be available with some support for English, Spanish, French, and Dutch languages, with both the user interface as well as audio support and subtitles for the library content, with additional languages available for Disney Plus originals. And also, they've kind of gone down the line really of making sure they'll be adding more support as it rolls out to each country. It's not a huge surprise, sort out Dutch, French, English first, then when you launch in Spain you put the Spanish in, and if you're launching in Portugal you then put the Portuguese, and that also sorts out Brazil and all that. They are going down this line. It's going to be a multi-country platform. They're going to have to do it. But of course, they're not going to put maybe all of them in at once. But at the same time, if The Mandalorian has got an audio subtrack of 10 different languages, I look at it very much like, say like, I don't know, Captain Marvel. Well, the Blu-ray and the movie's already got all of the subtitles and all of that. It's already been done. It's just bringing all of that tracks to it. But I think a lot of people are quite happy about seeing it, like things like the subtitles and the audio descriptions are all going to be there, and it's just little things like that which people are asking about because they want to be inclusive. And I think now you have to be, and I think there's actually laws that they have to do certain stuff. And as well, or offering different languages to me was like, they're going to have to do this. You can't launch a program. You can't launch Disney Plus in Brazil and not have it available in Portuguese. It's just, they're going to have to do the same thing with Mexico, same thing with France and Spain and Italy. You're going to have this content available with multiple selections, and you go in and you select it like you do with Netflix. It's just, I assumed this rather than was surprised they didn't do it.
Yeah, no, this is an announcement of a feature that should already be expected. I mean, it's good to know that they do in fact plan on it. They do in fact have plans in place, and that's about it. I mean, it would be very newsworthy if they're just like, no, it's in English. That's it. If you don't speak English, good luck. But obviously, the Disney, they want you to buy it. They want you to spend money, and the only real concern is, are there enough people watching in this language who don't also speak another language, not necessarily English, but any of the other language, because you might have someone down in Brazil who also speaks French, and they could watch it with French subtitles. But, the major countries, the major languages are all going to have their own
and I also look at it like a lot of this content is already being made with this in mind, dubbed and subtitles and all the rest of it. This is just standard affair. And when they release Captain Marvel in cinemas around the world, when it's showing in China, yes, it's in Mandarin. They aren't. It's they're used to this, and they've got all the audio tracks. They're all available. It's just they maybe on the Blu-ray when it comes out. I mean, when we get a Blu-ray over here, when we put it in, I don't know if it's the same thing in the US, but we get a message when you put a Blu-ray in or a DVD. It would say like English, French, German. We get an option right at the very beginning of asking us what language we want it in, and that sets up the entire, all the extras. Mandarin isn't on the Europe because they're not selling it there, but I've brought movies in China, and they have English or Mandarin or Cantonese at the front as well. It's just that's done. I don't know what it's like over there for you, if you have that or not.
It's hit and miss. Most movies, I think, just go straight to the main menu, and then if you need it in a different language or want it in a different language, you just hit the settings button or the audio track. There are, I think it's becoming more common that the opening screen will be English, Spanish, French, the usual suspects, but it's not the default by any stretch here in the States yet. But I can understand why in the Europe, all you guys all packed together there with so many different languages all together. You can't, just because you're in England, you can't say, oh yeah, he definitely speaks English. It's like,
I think it's more about the fact that they produced a disc and then it gets shipped out to the whole region.
Yeah,
therefore,
that's more what I was getting at.
It's more a practical thing of what's the cheapest way. We don't want to be making all these discs. So that's kind of a thing going forward. It's kind of like our last thing really was just after the D23 Expo, Disney released a new trailer for, or not even a trailer, it was a D23 first look of Star Wars Rise of Skywalker, which was half of it was just a recap of the entire saga, and then we kind of had a clip here of them looking at each other, fighting each other. There was the Rey scene, which obviously is a thing, and then kind of the end of it. And but I wouldn't be at all surprised if we have another full trailer before the actual movie gets released, because I thought this one, the actual Rise of the Skywalker bit was probably 20 seconds. It didn't seem very long.
No, I wouldn't even call this a trailer. This was a highlight reel, sizzle reel, something like that. And yeah, I don't really have positive things to say about it, but so much of it is out of context. This is the same thing I was talking about with Mandalorian last week, is there's no context to anything in the trailer. And it's like, all right, the last bit, the controversial bit, the part that set the internet on fire. I guarantee you they put that on there specifically to set the internet on fire. And we have no context. Is it a dream sequence? Is it, the Force cave from Empire Strikes Back on Dagobah? Is she actually doing that? The only thing for me is like, most people are like, is it evil? Is it good? I'm just like, that lightsaber is ridiculous. And not even in a good, not in like, the Force Awakens, you first see Kylo Ren's, the vents coming out the side. I'm like, no, that design's stupid. I really hope it's a dream sequence, because that lightsaber honestly annoys me.
Have you seen the gif of where she does it and it turns into like a Swiss Army knife?
Yeah, I have. And I'm sure there's all sorts of versions of it, but I've seen at least a couple. They did the same thing with Kylo when it first came out too. It'd be like comes out and then, a Christmas tree flies out the sides or something like that. I mean, to be fair, they've got to just be trolling at this point, but Lucasfilms, because they just got to be going, what is the most ridiculous design? We're going to get like lightsaber nunchucks at some point. I'm waiting for that one.
I just still remember though that scene from that trailer with when I was a teenager of Darth Maul when he goes, and he's got this thing, and the first one comes out, and then the second one comes out the other side. It was one of those moments of like, because at the time we'd never seen we only ever seen the lightsaber the way it was. So when they had this dual wielding one, that sort of set it up as being something. And it's hard to put into equation. Like when that originally, I remember that trailer when I was watching it on the diddiest little screen. I think I was at college. We like ran into the internet room to try and get onto the internet to watch the trailer. You don't know how easy it is now.
Oh, no. I remember seeing that too. I was in high school. I remember that very specifically. As we all piled into the computer lab, and I had the very different one, because I was the one like, oh my goodness, did you see the double-bladed lightsaber? That's freaking awesome. And everyone else is like, what was with that weird character voice, which turned out to be Jar Jar? And like, did you see those tanks? Those tanks were kind of weird. And I was the one getting like super excited, because I was like, I don't care about the rest. I want to see the fight with the double-bladed lightsaber. Yeah. But yeah, anyway, off topic.
And the fact that it probably would have been like 10, it probably would have been like 180D, probably like 200 P. Like literally the lowest setting. The lowest setting you can find on YouTube, and then half that again. Would have been a tiny little screen. But nevertheless, yeah, I mean, this is the thing really of that trailer. That thing is either to freak us out, something to throw us off. There's other things. There's clones. She's a clone. The whole of the Kylo Ren's Knights of Ren, all of them are Rey clones, and Rey escaped. You know, there's all these different theories going around at the minute. It's actually she's a clone of Emperor Palpatine. There's all these kind of weird stories going around there because it's literally that one clip has just opened up. I personally, again, more likely to be a nightmare, a dream, force thing. And this whole thing with like Palpatine, and I'm going, people are going, well, is he dead? Is he alive? And I'm going, well, hold on a minute. If Yoda and Obi-Wan and everybody else can be alive after they're dead, you don't think the Emperor could do that as well and be an evil Force ghost?
I mean, certainly possible.
Anything to like teaching Snoke and all. It's like, well, there is probably that other reason of he could be alive after, you know, he could be a Force ghost himself. Controlling.
Yeah, there's nothing that says the dark side can't have Force ghosts, especially since Force ghosts are a relatively recent thing, only since the prequels. I will say, you know, I haven't liked the trailers very much for Rise of the Skywalker. Some of that might be like lingering distaste of The Last Jedi, but they have done a very good job of getting people talking about it. Between the horseshoe lightsaber and all that, and you know, the first proper trailer from several months ago with her racing against the TIE silencer, which is just, I'm also kind of hoping is a dream sequence because that makes no sense out of context. But they've got people talking, and
unless they do the double turn where Rey becomes villain and then Kylo saves the day, because
I've heard that theory too.
Because he is a Skywalker. And,
he is.
You know, that could be the rise of the Skywalkers, him turning, because they've been teasing the idea that he's torn. He could, that's just my theory of, I think everyone's looking to Rey to be in the Skywalker, and I'm like going, I think it's about Kylo flipping, and yeah, that's my theory.
And it could be both. It could be neither. We could find out that he's not a Skywalker at all, although I don't know how that one would work. That would be weird. But point being, we don't know anything. Disney has or Lucasfilms, whoever made the trailers, has very specifically given us clips with no context at all that have gotten the rumor mills and the hypotheticals going full tilt. I've got a couple theories of my own, but at this point, I'm just like, you know what? Without any context for these screens, anything. You know what? Here's the theory: Rey is Hondo from Rebels and Clone Wars.
Yeah.
And we know that he just opened the new Galaxy's Edge at Hollywood Studios this past week. So yes, they're pushing Hondo, and Hondo is going to be both Rey and Kylo. That's why he wears the mask. He's hiding the fact that he's Hondo.
Right, there we go then.
There you go.
On that note, let us know what you guys think in the comments below. Go check us out over at whatsondisneyplus.com. Like us on Facebook. Join our Facebook group. Just hit well over 10,000 members this past week. Lots of conservation going on over there. Also, make sure you do subscribe here on YouTube. Again, just hit over 15,000 subscribers. So a big thank you to everyone that's joined us over there. Again, podcast services. Next week will be a little bit different. I'm talking to Casey from What's on Netflix, and we're going to have a full-on discussion all about Netflix and the battle with Netflix, and also the state of the sort of streaming, what's going on there. So it's a bit of a different episode, and then me and James will be back as per normal in 2 weeks' time. But yeah, thank you very much for joining us, so we'll see you guys soon. Later.